Bigfoot Collectors Club with Michael and Riley. I know a story of high strangeness or two. Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk to amazing guests about their personal paranormal history and share stories of high strangeness. I'm your host, putting his phone on Do Not Disturb, Michael McMillan. With me always is the syncopated syncopator.
Realizing that he should also put his phone on Do Not Disturb, Riley Bray. Hi.
Not so syncopated, are you?
The syncopated syncopator.
That was submitted by Antonia V over on BCC The Other Side, who assures us that she knows that syncopator is not a word, but it's still fun to say. It is now. You just invented it. We have a 2-part deep dive series kicking off right now. And to do that, we have brought back one of your favorite guests. We hear about how much our listeners love you all the time, good sir. From LA's famous groundlings and the show Man with a Plan and the film Champions, Club Scouts of all timelines, please welcome back BCC All-Star guest Matt Cook.
Hi, everybody. That's so flattering.
Matt, we love you.
I'm keeping my phone on and loud.
Great.
In case something pops up.
You never know when you're going to book the next big thing, Matt.
You have to be ready for Hollywood.
You do. Hollywood is calling. My dad. Can I say this?
Mm-hmm.
So we've been to a lot of doctor's appointments this past year, and my dad puts me down. You know, both he and my sister are emergency contacts, but every time he lets them know that I'm an emergency contact, he always says he's in California, but he's an actor, so he always has his phone with him. I'm like, nobody cares.
That's great.
That's hilarious.
Unless they go, hey, it's that guy from True Blood. Yeah, they don't care if I'm an actor. They do not give a shit. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. I'm good. I just spotted the Super Friends behind you, Michael, and it made me very happy.
This is a friendly reminder that you can watch this episode right now on our BCC YouTube channel. So just above my shoulder, I have a mix of the old school Kenner superpowers, including a carded Lex Luthor, which you can't see right now, really.
Excellent.
It's too far back in the background. And they're mixed in with the new retro McFarlane superpowers figures, which I've had to pick up. But let me tell you something. I've been over on eBay a lot, and I've been looking at those classic Kenner superpowers guys. Hey, everyone, it's Bigfoot Collectors Club. We can insert a little collector's corner in here right now at the top of the show.
Yeah, right up top.
And I'm very tempted because you can get some decent OG superpowers figures on like beat up cards for not that much money, considering all things. And then if you don't like the card, you can just open it. You have a brand new minty figure.
Can I say something that you might not like?
Please.
Yes.
You should just buy those.
I should.
I don't know what you're waiting for.
They're not making any more of them.
No, get them while you can. Get them while they're hot.
Get them while they're hot. And we love your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles posters.
Thank you.
Commented when we're sitting down.
Thank you.
Listen, you and I can talk all about
I know.
old toys, retro toys. I'm excited. Have you heard that Mask is coming back?
No.
Oh, this new company called The Loyal Subjects is remaking retro style Mask toys.
Oh, there goes my money.
No shit.
That's crazy.
And they're not cheap.
No.
So, no. These ones are like...
When I was a kid, my mom would say, we're going to Mass. And I'd be like, oh, we're going to Mask. And I got so excited. And then we went to church. And I was like, what is this?
Burn.
You lied to me.
You lied to me.
That's great. No, I did not know that. That's awesome.
I also would get excited when they said, we're watching Mask. And I'd be like, yes. And then it would turn out to be the Cher movie about Ricky Dennis, the guy with the face. And then I'd be like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
No. That's tough.
Riley's too young to remember any of these references.
My only context for this conversation is Jim Carrey and The Mask, and I'm sure that's not what you're talking about.
That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah,
We'd be excited to
I
see
didn't
The
think
Mask
so.
if we were kids.
Yep. That still tracks.
What does he say? It's showtime? What is he saying?
Party time, right?
Somebody stop me.
Somebody stop
There
me.
it is.
Somebody stop me right now, and let's get into it. I just want to have a quick update, Matt. Any more activity from the family with that haunted shed and the voice that was on? Was it your mother's phone? Videotaping your niece, your cousin.
My cousin was filming her granddaughter dancing, and then the audio got overloaded with the spirit.
Yeah.
It subsided for a while,
Okay.
and then it picked back up,
Oh shit.
and the shed would open and stuff. And I'm gonna send you a video.
No.
At Christmas, I meant to send this to you before this, but at Christmas we were at my cousin's house for a big Christmas party, and my mom and I went up to the shed just to like check it out. So I got my mom, to the shed, and I got her as close as she would go, and then she was like, "I'm done," and I don't like it, and that's that. So I have a little video of it, and it's
Where's this on the East Coast?
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania, and it's like. It was the first time I'd seen it in person since everything, and I didn't like it. It's not nice. It's like it looks like it's like a set. It's aggressively creepy, and it's positioned weird in the yard. It's just like all of it's so weird.
Do you think your family would be open to a little visit from the BCC boys, their cousin Matt, and maybe some paranormal investigators to find out what the hell's going on?
I will surely ask.
I mean.
Shed investigation team.
Yeah.
I might sit in the car for it, but I'll point. I'll let you guys know where it's at.
Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, Matt was on about a year ago. Go find that episode. It was an L-Files episode, I think we called Ghost Nuns. So it was around 271 or so. Jeez. So go check that out. Yeah.
Hey, Rain Man.
All right. Yeah. Well, I look at these things all the time. So.
I know.
Okay, let's get into it. Riley. Nominate our 5-star Club Scout of the Week, please.
Let's do it. Well, this week it's Mr. Spooky 1054. And Mr. Spooky says, a safe space for Bigfoot. I'm the crazy guy who believes in Sasquatch and flying saucers, but when I've got the podcast going, I feel like I'm among friends. Thanks for making it okay to believe in the paranormal. 5 stars. Thanks for so many years of top shelf entertainment. 5 stars. And then, of course, 5 stars. Which, again, makes this a 15-star review.
This is great. This is our second 15-star review
It's coming
this
up.
Month, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Spooky.
Also, Mr. Spooky, you're already making it okay by calling yourself Mr. Spooky. So just, embrace it.
Lean into it.
Let's get into this deep dive. Now, we kick this off every time we do one of these by asking Riley, what do you know about the Jim Sparks alien abduction case?
I know I say this a lot, and then I follow up with it being not true, but literally nothing.
I think you're right this time.
Okay, we found one.
I knew literally nothing about this before we jumped in. We're going to talk more about it, but I found this. I was at Dark Delicacies in Burbank. Have you ever been to that bookstore, Matt? It's like well, you might be a little scared of it. It's a horror-based bookstore. Yep. Might give you the creeps going in.
Already.
But I went in there.
I was whole section on sheds.
No. Big shed section. And I found this book called The Keepers. I'm going to hold up the cover here so you can see it. It's a
great cover.
It's a man at a beach. It's a drawing of a man at a beach with a mullet staring off into the horizon, and there's a giant alien head peering back at him. Yeah. And I took one look at this. I said, I will buy this, please. And I took it up to the counter, and the guy was like, this is what you want? And I was like, yes. He's like, I don't know why you're buying this book. I'm like, you're selling it, sir. It was the secondhand copy. But it's been sitting on my shelf for a while, and it's a very wild looking book. So I thought, you know what? It's time to blow off the dust, crack that spine, and get into this and find out what this story is all about. Matt, where are you on alien abductions? What are your feelings about them? Do you find them? Do you put it under bullshit or believe it when it comes to alien abductions?
I think I go right down the middle. I think I saw parts of Fire in the Sky as a kid, and I never recovered.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
And so I think there's like, I mean, on a regular day, I go like, nah, like why would they? Who cares? But then also if I put a little time on it, I go, well, maybe, and I can go either way. But it's definitely spooky and interesting.
I mean, the why would they for me is, if our scientists could get to a different planet and like bag and tag some aliens and study them and track them, they 100% would, because we do that with wildlife all the time.
Yeah.
So
That's true. I guess, yeah. I mean, we're always like tagging seals and stuff.
yeah,
Like,
elk.
and seeing what
We're
they
just
do.
elk. We're
Yeah.
just elk to them.
I think we're more like seals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The elk are a little more powerful and graceful. I feel like the
Majestic.
human form is a bit more seal-like.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah.
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 Just sitting there snoring.
Yeah, flopping
Trying
around.
to combat these alien greys with our flippers. Just like, they feed us fish, and then suddenly we're performing in their version of SeaWorld.
Yeah.
I bet that happens. I think there are humans in alien zoos on other planets, don't you?
There must be.
Must
Or that's
be.
what this whole thing is already.
I was going to say, maybe we're in one right now, man.
No, man, we're in the animal kingdom of
Yeah.
zoos, all right? Intergalactic zoos. Okay, let's dive in. Here we go, everybody. Telling the story about an alien abduction is a lot like trying to tell someone about a dream. It's weird. There's not a ton of structure or logic, and the whole thing feels completely made up. Dreams also have a tendency to vanish from one's memory in the early morning light, much like alien abductions. Except the subject of this story is unique among most alien abductees because he can remember his experiences. No regression required. Now, it must be said that to believe this story, you must take the author at his word, which might be a tough pill to swallow, even for me. But what follows is truly a fascinating glimpse into the abduction experience and what it may be like, and whether or not it may be real, and what the aliens might want from us. Dr. John E. Mack, the Harvard-educated psychiatrist who interviewed many people who claim to have had contact with alien life forms, including the children of the Ariel School in Zimbabwe. Have you ever heard of that case, Matt?
Nope.
Oh, boy. That's a spooky one, and it's very cool. A bunch of kids on a playground saw two saucers land, made contact with alien beings, and it was like a mass sighting with like 60 kids who all saw this thing. And it was really cool case. There's a very good documentary called Phenomenon that friends of the show were involved with. Go watch it. It's on like Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's great.
It's spooky,
excellent.
but it's really compelling.
Great.
So this is what John E. Mack had to say about today's main character. He has the passion, curiosity, and self-doubt of an authentic, truthful voice. There would be little reason to question the reality of what he has written except for the fact that from the standpoint of the materialist worldview that still dominates our culture, what Sparks has to tell us is simply not possible. We are then faced with the choice of rejecting his story prima facie or allowing ourselves to expand our notions of the possible by attending to what he has to say. And like most cases of high strangeness, that's exactly how I'm approaching this story. However, I do not doubt that we are going to form some strong opinions along the way. With that being said, Matt, Riley, Club Scouts of all timelines, let's see if we can shed some light on this bizarre tale. Let's dive into Jim Sparks and the Star People, Part 1.
That also sounds like a prog rock band. that would be playing at a
Gary-
local bar.
Yeah, same festival as the Gary Wilcox UFO encounter. Jim Sparks
Exactly.
and the Star People.
Yeah,
I'm going
love
to try to
that.
name all these deep dives as prog rock band names for 2025.
I love it. Then we could do a festival T-shirt.
Yeah. Okay, great. This is a
Oh,
new
that'd
goal.
be so cool. Okay, here we go. My name is Jim Sparks, and I have been contacted by extraterrestrial beings. I bring a message of grave warning, but most of all, I bear a message of hope for a future of joy and fulfillment for the human race beyond our present comprehension.
Jim Sparks, born Vincent Sparaccino, is a self-proclaimed alien abductee who had the majority of his abductions take place between 1988 and 1994 in Texas, North Carolina, and Florida. That quote you just heard was from his memoirs of his alien experiences, the book I just mentioned, The Keepers, An Alien Message for the Human Race, published in 2006. Now, looking at Jim, you wouldn't immediately think alien abductee. His stocky build, his mustache, and black curly mullet evokes more Kenny Powers than New Age contactee. But that's just one of Jim's many weird charms. Up until the late 1980s, Jim claims that he never even thought about aliens and had no clue about anyone else's experiences. He claims that he never heard of people like Bud Hopkins, the hypnotherapist who coined the term missing time, or Betty and Barney Hill, or Whitley Strieber in his own memoir about alien contact, Communion. Roswell was not in Jim's lexicon, and The X-Files was still at least 5 years from airing on television. In other words, in 1988, Jim was just a regular guy living in Texas, married to the woman of his dreams, his wife Teresa, and working in the land development industry. He was, by all indications, a proud, boring businessman.
After 12 years of working for someone else, I took all my savings and started my own natural land development company, J&J Properties. I'd buy land and divide it into home site lots. My main development was called Ashley Estates.
And I don't know if this is just because of the Ashley Madison stuff from a few years ago, but Ashley Estates for sure sounds like a place where you go to have affairs.
100%.
It does. It
Yeah.
sounds enticing, to say the least.
We also just really have to take a moment to appreciate this mullet because
It is, yes, please do.
well, so normally a mullet, it's business in the front, party in the back, but it's more like party in the front, party in the back. I feel like the mullet.
Yeah.
This mullet, he's got like gel set curls in the front with just a flowing feathered tail. I mean, this guy is like rock and roll Tom Selleck or something.
Yes,
He's
he
an
does
incredible
have.
mullet.
And the other thing that he loves to remind the reader, like every chapter, at least once a chapter, he talks about like, I'm Italian. I'm an Italian born. My parents
Hell
were
yeah.
Italian. I have an Italian temper. I have this like he really kind of embodies the 1980s Italian stallion vibe.
Great.
And he is so proud of it. And there are wonderful illustrations in this book, and all of them tend to be over his shoulder, and they
Featuring the
all
mullet.
feature the mullet. And this is why I bought this book. I was
Jim.
like, "Who is this man?" Look at him on the back cover with
a
this.
golden retriever
Yeah.
on a dog.
I
Fantastic.
love this guy.
What a ledge. All right, carry on.
100%.
I just had to point that out.
I have a
for the
Sopranos t-shirt
listeners.
on too, by the way.
look at
Speaking
that.
There you
of
go.
American.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Perfect.
I love it. So Jim often traveled back and forth from Texas to North Carolina, where he would do most of his business, and which is why some of his abduction experiences took place there. The Star People who abducted Jim, sometimes up to 6 or 7 times a month for years, could find and get to Jim anywhere. His bedroom, his living room, hotel rooms, sky rises, his car at night, even Ashley Estates. You're not safe at Ashley Estates. Your secrets will be found by the aliens. These alien grays that could materialize out of thin air, walk through walls, and shapeshift using a term Jim called screen imaging to appear in any form they liked, even as human beings. When it came to the grays, there's literally nowhere to hide.
This also
Jim's-
does really push the like affair narrative thing of just like I was abducted again.
Alien.
Well,
They find me everywhere I go.
yes. we will find in this story, like, there is a long lost weekend period in this man's life. And one of the things that I keep bumping up against, and I think we'll kind of wait to really, I mean, let's call shots as we see them. But like at the end of all of this, I think, we'll take some time to really kind of unpack it. But there is this pull of like, is this man experiencing this stuff, or is something else going on here where the people around him are pleading for him to get help, and he is not doing that, right? So that's one of the things that I go back and forth reading this narrative. But you'll also find that there are things that he talks about in the abduction experience that we have heard many, many times before in cases like Communion, and especially the Betty Andreasson abduction story that we did a couple years back, Riley. Like, things jump out at you that you're like, okay, well, if we take this at face value, as Johnny Mac suggests, and he doesn't have any prior knowledge to this stuff, and I don't see indication why a man who's got businesses with names like J&J Properties and Ashley Estates would at all be into the UFO stuff in 1988. I could be wrong. Then he doesn't know about these other cases. So the things that line up are really interesting to me.
Okay, cool.
Jim's experiences began in 1988. Over the course of that year, Jim began having dreams of being escorted out of bed by strange entities who would walk him down the hallway into his guest room and phase him through a large picture window into his front yard. Once outside, Jim would be hit with the vivid smell of honeysuckle blossoms from the bushes lining his house, and the beings would escort him into the woods. The dream would always go black after that. But then Jim would remember being brought back into the house, phasing back through the honeysuckle bushes through the window, and being taken back to his bed. On the mornings after having this recurring dream, Jim would notice a strange paralysis as he awoke that would last a few minutes. The dream recurred for days until one morning, after Jim had had the honeysuckle dream again, he noticed the strange paralysis upon waking lasted much longer. The dream had been very lucid that night. He could remember the sensation of walking over cool dirt and the feeling of honeysuckle blossoms that had fallen to the ground outside the guest room window, sticking to the soles of his bare feet. When he finally broke out of his spell, Jim got up to get ready for work, and when passing by the guest room, something caught his attention. There, running from a straight line from the wall with the picture window to the hallway, were sets of muddy footprints and a trail of honeysuckle blossoms. I'm just going to say, I never thought I would say the word honeysuckle so much in an episode of the show. It's never been said before, and it's probably never going to be said again.
It kind of reads like a romance novel.
Yeah. It is a little sexy. Again,
honeysuckle dream. Come on.
Do you imagine like the scent of honeysuckle in the air as you're driving to meet your mistress at Ashley Estates?
Yeah.
Sorry, getting carried away with myself. Jim walked into the room to examine the prints. He could clearly make out his own muddy footprints as well as smaller footprints next to his own, about the size of a child's. One of his footprints overlapped the threshold between his guest room and the exterior of his house. He could clearly see the impression of his heel on one side of the window pane and his toes on the carpet inside the guest room. Startled, Jim did what most people would do.
I panicked and phoned the police. When 2 officers arrived, I regretted the call, but I showed them the evidence that someone had come into the house and walked right through a window and wall. There was a right footprint on the lawn outside and a left footprint on the pile carpeting. Also, there was that footprint, half on the grass and half on the carpet.
With no sign of an actual break-in and nothing burgled, the police shrugged it off and Jim was left to clean up the tracks. This is very much, Riley, the beginning of Lost Highway.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, like beat for beat. Yeah,
beat for beat. Someone's coming to the house. They videotaped me and my wife. They call the cops, and the cops are like, "Nothing was stolen. What can we do?"
Yeah. Buckle up, Jim.
Buckle up, Jim. When the muddy footprints passing through the wall appeared again a few mornings later, Jim began to wonder that perhaps his dreams of being escorted into the woods at night by small entities weren't dreams at all. He even pointed out the footprints to Teresa, his wife, who rolled her eyes and accused him of playing a prank. It would be the beginning of a wedge that would slowly drive Jim and Teresa apart. This was also the beginning of what Jim would describe as his education in alien boot camp. One night in December of 1988, Jim was having a hard time falling asleep. It was around 3:30 in the morning when he started to feel a buzz climb up through his body. Jim could hear a strange whirring sound and felt an ever-quickening sense of acceleration. The sensation was terrifying. Just as the feeling grew so intense that he thought he might die, he slowly opened his eyes to find himself sitting, paralyzed, in a dim, white room. So we're going to hear this term a lot, acceleration. This is the term that he uses for being what he calls pulled. He doesn't use the term abduction so much as he calls being pulled. And he would say, this is how he knew these guys were going to come for him. He'd be minding his own business, usually at night, and then suddenly this buzzing sensation would creep up from his toes all the way up to the top of his head, and this whirring, pressurized, and this feeling of speeding up while sitting still. Like the almost like I think he's like describing like the G-forces almost as you're laying in bed. And he always says the acceleration. That's how he talks about it.
This does also sort of sound like a seizure coming on.
That's what I was
It does
thinking.
sound like
Yeah.
a seizure. Yes.
Just, throwing that out there as well.
Throw that on out there. Listen, we got to have our skeptics hat. I think it's fine to have our skeptics caps on here.
I wish he'd photograph those footprints, I'll tell you that.
No shit. I thought the same thing,
Guys,
Jim. What are
photograph the
we
spooky footprints. Come
doing
on.
here,
Yeah.
dude? Come on. Jim sat in the room. The air smelled sulfurous, deep, and ancient. There's that sulfur smelling stuff again. And he was sitting at a clear glass table that had what we would describe now as a flat touchscreen, like an iPad, but what Jim could only describe in 1988 terms as a kind of a flat TV screen that acted like some kind of electronic paper. I mean,
That's an iPad.
that's an iPad.
Alien iPad.
8 feet in front of him was a wall with another large flat screen. Jim tried to get up, but his movement was restricted to just the ability to tilt his head up from the table to the wall and back down again, and the ability to move his wrist and forefinger. He discovered that when he drew his finger across the table tablet, the line his finger traced would appear on the wall in front of him. Jim had a sense that he wasn't alone, that the entities who had been escorting him through the wall at night were standing just outside of his peripheral view. However, when he tried to turn his head left or right, he was restrained by this unseen, paralyzing force. Jim had a growing sensation that he was in some sort of large computer.
Why am I here? What the hell is this all about? I thought. The fear was coming back in a different, dreadful flavor. I didn't know if I could speak aloud or not because I was too frightened to try. Then my head went up, moved by some force other than myself, my eyes involuntarily fixed on that gray wall screen.
In the middle... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Jim, I'm sorry. I'm getting excited.
Hey.
I'm just like
Hey.
these aliens. I'm abducting your
You're
whole...
abducting my voice.
Let the mullet speak.
In the middle of my head, I heard a voice say,
You will learn this.
The voice, however, was not received by Jim's ears. It was a telepathic voice echoing inside of his, not head. He says it felt like it was coming from his chest up to his head. Like it's resonating through him. It wanted Jim to sit, listen, and obey its commands. Something that Jim did not want to do. And this is where Jim will remind us in this story that he is an Italian-born American. He does not comply to orders easily. Listen, I'm making no judgments here. This is what he likes to say. This guy is definitely hot-headed. And so many parts of this book are just the aliens being like, do this. And he goes, no, I'm not doing a goddamn thing you tell me to do until you explain why I'm here. And they're like, no, you will do what we're telling you to. And he keeps saying that what he wants to do is later on when he gets to look at them and he realizes he's dealing with alien greys, he keeps saying that what he wants to do is break free and squeeze their skinny little necks until their heads pop like a balloon. Like, he's very angry. So just keep that in the back of your mind as all of this. He's being very obstinate and angry.
It is kind of a Kenny Powers energy.
Very Kenny Powers energy.
Yeah.
100%.
I like it.
And this is the other thing is, like, for most of these experiences, it's not till much later that the aliens will kind of cut the puppet strings and allow him more movement. All of these episodes, he says he is sitting there unable to move, and then when the aliens want to move him, they can basically puppeteer him. Which would be terrifying if that was actually happening to you, especially, multiple times a month. So we're back he's sitting at the table, and the letter A appeared on the wall in front of Jim. Our letter A, the English language A. Next to that, a straight line created by overlapping strokes, 1, 2, 3, tracing over the line in this pattern, appeared. And it quickly became clear that the aliens wanted Jim to recreate the line on the table in front of him. Jim refused to cooperate, and as his obstinance grew, the letter and the symbol would reappear on the wall as if to emphasize the assignment. Each time Jim refused to obey the commands of the unseen alien force holding him hostage, the air pressure in the room would increase. It finally got to the point where Jim felt as if he were going to implode. Finally, his finger reluctantly swiped the alien symbol on the tablet, and the pain and the pressure immediately evaporated. As a reward, Jim was flooded with a pure sense of euphoria. And he described this feeling as like, I have never felt a feeling like this in my life. It felt fucking good.
So they're teaching the alphabet with like heroin and thread of death, basically.
Yeah, like orgasmic feelings. And this shit will get a little...
A is for awesome.
Yes. Yeah. This shit will get a little spicy, as we'll see.
Okay.
Great.
The game was clear. Write what you see, you get a reward. Refuse and experience crushing pain. The process repeated over and over again. The flashing A, followed by the alien symbol. The crushing pressure until Jim gave in and traced a correlating symbol on the table, followed by release and euphoria.
Anger stabbed through the pleasant feeling again. Who are you bastards? I demanded. You don't have the right to do this to me.
The telepathic response came back.
We have the right. We always have. We always will.
And with that, Jim's eyes closed. The acceleration sensation returned. And when he opened his eyes again, he was back in his bedroom. These experiences continued over the next several months, sometimes multiple nights a week. The process usually went like this. It was between 3:30 and 4 a.m. Jim would be in bed, awakened by the sense of acceleration. It would begin slowly at first, with a sense of dread in his stomach. This was how Jim always knew the beings were coming. The painful acceleration, sometimes he would see the beings, who looked like 3-foot-tall alien greys, materialize in his room before being whisked away to the alien classroom. Each trip, he walked through the symbols that correlated with characters from the English alphabet. Under complete physical restraint by the beings, Jim would be forced to practice this alien alphabet. Once they had decided he'd mastered one symbol, they would move on to the next. Jim always did this under protest, and most often he'd never get through more than one symbol per abduction. And this is what he called his alien boot camp. He felt like these entities were like drill sergeants who were forcing him to do these drills that he did not want to do. Now, I will put this chart on the Instagram. You can see it in the YouTube if you're watching. But if you scroll down, you guys will see this alien chart of alien languages, or of the alien alphabet. And what he would say is like, A is a line, but it's not just one dash, it's 3 dashes overlapping itself, and there's a specific direction that you have to do these things. The B looks like a 3, but again, there's a specific direction that you have to do all of these lines. And then numerical stuff, they're sort of just like lines. They look like bent eyelashes. And the aliens had told him, like, we only do 1 through 6. They were like, he's like, what are you talking about? And they're like, our numerical system is based on 6. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, it's the way we do things. You don't need to care about it. Just draw these symbols.
No 0 either, huh?
No 0. There's no, let me look here too, because this is sort of an incomplete chart. There's a big chart at the back of the book. There's no zeros. There's no Q. There's nothing for X or Z. Or Z if you're listening in the UK. But one of the things that he asks, which I think was astute, whether he was making all of this stuff up, which, I don't want to accuse him of that, or if this was really happening to him. And he did ask the question, like, okay, this is an alien language. Why would there be a 1-to-1 for the
phonetics, yeah.
For the phonetics, and why would there be a 1-to-1 for the English alphabet?
Yeah.
And what he ultimately decides is this isn't really literally an alphabet, that these are sort of codes and codings, and really kind of like what to me feels like ritual spell casting that sort of unlocks potential in his mind to be more receptive and be able to coexist with this alien intelligence. And we'll kind of get into that later. But they're trying to show him this is like elementary school when you practiced your ABCs. It's not literally an alien alphabet.
Right, okay. And he's like, no, fuck this.
Yeah. I did this in kindergarten. I'm
learn your stupid alphabet.
This is baby stuff.
I love that. I wish I had a little more of that in me.
I
wish I could just be like, absolutely not.
Yeah. I walk into an audition room and they're like, take off your pants. And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. I walk in, they go, hi. I go, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
The other thing that happens while he's doing these alphabet drills is they begin to interject a new game where they would project the words lust and power on the screen. And they'd be like, choose! And he'd go, okay. So he would choose lust.
Obviously.
He always chose lust.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would do as his reward system was they would project these 3D images on the screen, these like holographic images that looked like they had depth, like augmented reality images of pretty pornographic stuff. And he realized that whatever his fantasies were, they would show up on the screen.
Nice.
So he basically got to watch porn of his own head, of his own mind, if he did a good job.
Wow.
So we'll talk more about
hell
that
of an
in a little
alphabet class.
bit. No shit.
I would have done so much better in school.
During one of his, we were getting boners in class in middle school anyway.
Yeah.
Just by sitting there and trying not to think about this stuff.
That's what the aliens, that's the power they've learned to harness.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Do you know how many times I had to carry a math textbook over my crotch as I stood up from my desk?
Yeah.
And try to get to my locker? People don't know. This thing just had a mind of its own when you're 13 and 14.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Terrible.
You just sit there in constant fear. Someone's going to ask you to get up. Like, no.
During one of his abductions to the classroom, Jim finally asked, "Who are you?" The being simply responded,
We are star people.
and then sent Jim back to bed. All right, so Jim has just learned that these creatures call themselves the Star People. But what they really are...
Little on the nose.
Little on the nose. Yeah. What they really are, and again, it's like simple terms for a simple creature in there. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of this to me feels like kind of like cruel dog training.
Yeah.
You know, if you could show your dog porn to get them to sit, speak, bark, shake. But what we'll discover is there's really two types of Star People on this craft, and they're really alien grays. They're just like alien grays. And he realizes that there are little grays that he thinks are really artificial beings, that they're worker drones. And the alien grays are the 3-foot tall gray, black, almond eye shaped ones with the pocket mouths. And he said he never heard them make any sounds. Any communication that he would pick up from them was always telepathic. They were the ones that came down and would get him. They're the ones who are like escorting him and standing in the room with him while he's doing this stuff. Then there's what he calls the supervisors. And the supervisors are what we've come to know in the alien lore as the tall grays. He says they're anywhere between 4 to 5 feet tall, so not that tall, but taller than the little ones. And he says the presence of these beings is really strong when they walk in the room. And he could feel them standing over his shoulder or getting close to his face. And they would enter the room when he was really acting up or when they really needed to emphasize that he needed to do something, work harder on his assignment. And he says the supervisors looked more human, not human, but they looked less like the alien grays. They looked more like the aliens that the alien grays were modeled after as artificial beings. Their eyes were had a little bit more soul to them, and they, I think, had more of a pupil and iris to them. But he would say their bodies were really atrophied and wrinkly, and they would sometimes use what he keeps referring to as screen imaging, which I think is sort of like a holographic effect where they can mask themselves and kind of shapeshift, but it's a projection over their bodies, kind of like a costume or a mask. The other thing that they can do is they can walk through walls, they can get you anywhere. They do not behave by the rules of our physics in this reality.
Before we move on from symbols, can I tangent a fun fact real quick that I just learned? Do you know where why the numbers are the shapes they are and where that came from? So it's like Arabic in India, like way back when, but it counts. You count the number of angles in the symbol. So like 1 is like a line with a little flag. There's 1 angle, and they were originally all straight lines. So like 2, 2 parallel lines with the connecting line. There's 2 angles. 3 is like, line, 3 angles. And that's what defined the symbols that make up our numbers. Isn't that amazing?
That's
I
awesome.
know. It blew my mind.
What about 6?
It's because it's they're
more square.
There were no curves. It was all straight lines. So 6 has 6 angles. Each number has the amount of angles that are the representation of the number.
That's awesome.
I know, right?
That's very cool.
All right, carry on.
So after some time of these experiences taking place, Jim was on a business trip to North Carolina where he stayed at one of his business partners' houses, a friend of his, this guy named Jim Johnson. And he claims that Jim Johnson's a real salt of the earth kind of guy. And Johnson was the very first person that Jim confided in, and not the last person to interpret what Jim is experiencing as some kind of devilish cult shit, to quote Jim Johnson. And whatever Jim sparks was confronted with this idea and we'll see more of that coming down the road. He pushed back, saying what is happening to him has nothing to do with satanic forces. He was on board with the idea that he was in contact with real, genuine alien beings. Now, whether these beings were from another planet or some other type of interdimensional place Jim hadn't decided, but he was convinced that whatever was happening, it had nothing to do with religion and would, in fact, probably destroy any religious belief system it confronted. But while these experiences were coded in sci-fi fiction symbolism, there was sometimes more earthly symbolism mixed in with these experiences. For example, one night, Jim had moved from his bedroom to the living room to sleep on the couch because, as you would imagine, it was getting a little more and more difficult to sleep comfortably in his own bed. And there was a growing distance between him and Teresa. Jim had not been able to truly express what he'd been going through. Teresa would black out during Jim's abductions, and on the rare occasions when Jim would open up and try to talk about what he was going through and why he'd been acting so strange lately, she would quickly shut down the conversation. On this particular night, when Jim was trying to sleep on the couch, he witnessed 3 orbs glowing phosphorus green enter the room. They formed a perfect triangle, and a glowing green mist shot out of them and filled the air. Out of the emerald mist in the center of the triangle emerged a 3D holographic image of an owl.
Yes.
The owl is sometimes associated with alien abductions. In the book Communion, Whitley Strieber noted, "There was a white owl that used to stand in our backyard and watch the windows of my bedroom when I was a child. It made my folks nervous. This was during the time that they started nailing the screens shut." Strieber also noted that after his first abduction, he had the strong sense memory of a barn owl staring at him through the window. In Hindu mythology, the barn owl specifically is the vehicle or the vahana of the goddess Lakshmi, the symbol of wisdom, and a symbol of wisdom. The owl is associated with the goddess Athena in Greek mythology, where it also symbolizes wisdom and the ability to see in the dark, which could be interpreted as seeing through the dark, as in seeing deeper truths, a deeper reality. For Jim, the owl, which became a recurring image preceding his abductions, meant to him that school was back in session. And this was another case that he would call screen imaging. He uses this term that they have the ability to create these images out of nowhere. Matt,
that's definitely the logo of Jim Sparks and the Star People.
Oh yeah.
The triangle mist owl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
they have a giant owl
like
that they bring out on stage. It's like they're Eddie.
The fog rolls in, and then Jim walks up and he says, "School's back in session."
Yeah. Peer, 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 and then they go.
Yeah. It's all about how they don't want to do any of their work and they just want to watch pornography.
Yeah.
Matt, where are you? Where's your head at so far with all this? We're throwing a lot at you.
It's very interesting. I think the I really am interested in the 3 lines over each other really jumped out at me as sort of like like the depth of that and the idea that like what we see is 2D, there's more to it and that kind of stuff.
Oh, I like that there's like actual depth to the line. We're just seeing like the 2-dimensional image of it.
Yeah, and that kind of like ties in with the whole idea for me that there's just such a different way to look at it all, you know, like for them and what we can perceive and what is out there and all that, I think is very interesting. The overlapping image of what they can appear as only made me think of Nightcrawler from the X-Men animated show when he would go into town and he'd have his little bracelet on and he would look like a regular human.
Yeah.
Like that's all I could think of.
I think it's very similar. And in part 2, we're going to get to some aliens that like literally do that. Like they literally cloak themselves to look human.
I love that. I am bumping on some of the 2 names that have come in of Jim Johnson and Dr. Johnny Mack.
Yeah.
Like they definitely feel like names that this guy would make up.
Okay, well, I will say John E, middle initial E, Mack is a real guy. Are we
sure?
Yes, we're definitely sure. You can see footage of him, and again, like he really, he was a good guy. Like Harvard, he was a real psychiatrist who started to catch on to cases of alien abductions, and he at first was like, what is up with this? And as he met with more and more people and these kids at the aerial school who had this mass sighting, he really started to go, okay, something fascinating is happening here. I don't know if it's alien, but there is a common shared experience happening here between cultures and between strangers, that he was like, something's up with this. It's at the very least something that these people truly believed happened to them. And that was really what he was interested in. He's a very, very chill, really sweet, almost like a Mr. Rogers energy about this guy. And he wrote lots of papers on this stuff. He was keynote speakers, would speak about this stuff. And he really tried to have the mainstream conversation about this. And because of that, he was ostracized by the materialist scientific community. Harvard basically exiled and denounced him because they were like, you cannot be talking about this. And I think later they reinstated him, but they disclaimed him for a long time because they thought he sounded like a quack. But I think out of anybody in this field, John E. Mack is probably the most like grounded, legitimate. I would put him up there with people like Jacques Vallée, who are really trying to look at this from the big picture and go, what is going on with this alien stuff, and how does it pertain to the human psyche and the human condition? Why are people doing this? Or why are people saying this happens to them? Either it's really happening, or this is an aspect of human nature that we have not really looked at before.
I think he's an alien.
Okay, great. He might be.
I'm not going to change my mind.
He's got a really, really gentle energy about it.
I love that. I love that idea that like it might just be an element of human psyche that we don't like. That's so interesting to me, and I love that he's looking at it in that balanced way of like it's one or the other, right? Or maybe it's something else entirely. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean he would basically come down to like, they believe this, so we should believe that this was their truth, what happened to them. Now, what the hell that is needs to be looked at more deeply, right?
Yeah, that's the perfect perspective. I like that.
Yeah. And then Jim Johnson might be a pseudonym. Jim Sparks is a pseudonym. His real name was Vincent. And he changed to Jim Sparks, I think, because he just wanted to have a nom de plume and maybe separate his business life from his alien abduction life. So if he did come up with
marquee too.
Yeah, if he did come up with Jim Johnson and Jim Sparks, like we need to like pull him aside and say like, there's more than one name than just Jim.
Yeah.
But I think because and this is peeking ahead a little bit, I was looking up where he was today, and I'm pretty sure I found his obituary, and he died in 2023.
Damn.
And he said he was survived by his wife, Teresa. So he might have used some real first names in this book. And despite how estranged their marriage becomes in this story, I was surprised that they ended up together. They stayed together.
That's great. I do feel like if this was happening to me and I had a wife that was there, I would be like, you're staying up, I'm staying up. Like, you have to help me. Like, that idea that she's blacking out during the abductions is sort of interesting. Like, I wonder what that dynamic was for them and
Just
how
wait.
that goes. Okay, good.
Just
okay.
wait. Jim also started to notice how the star people seemed to almost exist in two dimensions at once. That most of the time, like when they would materialize out of thin air or walk through walls, they weren't fully present in our world. They could fully materialize, but when they did, Jim noticed that they moved rather clumsily around our third-dimensional space. He noted that one time when two aliens entered his living room one night while he was trying to sleep on the couch, they began clumsily interacting with objects around his house, almost as if they were drunk. And he said they were like picking things up and like bumping into lamps, and one of them was running his fingers in the ashes in the fireplace and like looking at it like, whoa, this is really weird. Almost as if they were drunk. He began noticing that for a period of time after his abduction, he would almost give off a strange energy wave that seemed to create poltergeist activity around his house, making inanimate objects leap across the room or interfere with electronic equipment. I really like this idea. I like this idea that if you have crossed over to some other dimension, or you've been aboard some sort of UFO, whatever the UFO is, that when you come back, you're kind of radiated. It's kind of like a static electricity building up in you. And because we've heard of other abduction cases where people would experience orbs of light and telekinetic activity, poltergeist activity in the house. And so I like the idea that people come back with this like extra charge that interferes with the objects around them. I think that's really, really fun. You know, and that could also explain why when people are getting picked up by aliens, their car shorts out, that the electronics stop, that there might be some sort of wave that these things give off, that this realm or these entities or their technology gives off that fucks with the things in our world.
I mean, there's examples of that in nature. Like an electric eel could like light Christmas lights from a like being in an aquarium next to it, just discharging. Like, cool. That does exist.
Yeah. And I like this idea too, that they aren't literally walking through the wall. Our dimension overlaps, or they're sidestepping into an overlapping dimension to move around physical objects. And they're literally half in that dimension and half in our dimension, which allows them to appear to phase through solid objects. They're just walking across the dimension that's like one layer or one layer above or below our own, or next to.
Totally.
It made me think of like when you go into VR and you're like, can I pick this up? Oh shit! Oh, I dropped the whatever, and it's like that sort of thing of like, this is not what they're used to. It's close, but it's different. Like that's really interesting to me.
And how in VR you are in the virtual realm and the real world at the same time, moving through two spaces at once. I think that's like pretty good model to think of it as.
That's cool.
About 4 months into his abduction experiences, Jim's life began to fall apart. The stress from interaction with the beings, the lack of sleep, the growing distance between him and Teresa, and his inability to focus on his work were catching up to him. During this period, Jim was on one of his many visits to alien boot camp, where he'd been struggling to grasp the numerical system the beings had presented to him when a supervisor informed him that it was time to compete. Jim asked,
"Compete with whom?"
Look!
I was able to turn my head, so I looked around. To my right was a corridor, through which I could look into another room. I was so shocked by what I saw that I almost fainted. The room was a duplicate of mine. Tools, screens, everything. But instead of me sitting on the stool, it was my wife.
Teresa seemed to be working away at a separate task station, fluently writing in the alien language that Jim was trying to learn. She turned to look at Jim and seemed to stare right through him. Jim yelled at the creatures in his mind.
"That's my wife!"
She is ours. Always has been. Always will be.
And that is where we will pick up the story next week in part 2 of Jim Sparks and the Star People.
Wow. That last line from the aliens is really like, Neener, neener, neener.
Yeah. They're very Kang and Kodos in my mind.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Matt, Riley, thoughts so far?
I love it. I can't wait for more. I mean, okay, I love what you were saying, Matt, about the multi-dimensionality of the language and the phasing and everything. And like, I do think that is how that would be, right? Like in like a 2-dimensional world, a line is a wall, but in a 3-dimensional world, you just step right over it. You know, it's like, so in a multi-dimensional world, a wall is nothing. It's not even there. But like, and I also love that idea about them being like clumsily sort of being in this like primitive dimension, like fumbling around. Like, that's so good. I do think it's possible that Jim has undiagnosed epilepsy and maybe a touch of schizophrenia.
Sure.
He's having seizure episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think we can completely rule that out.
Right, sure. But I mean, I don't think he's like making this up. It doesn't strike me as that at all. Like, I think this feels like very real and genuine experiences to him, and I think he's a worthy narrator in that regard.
Yeah. At the end of this, at the back of this book, just to piggyback on what you guys are saying, the publisher is talking about what's up with these letters and numbers, and they note, Firstly, we can conclude that the hidden three-dimensional structure of our two-dimensional languages may be subtle alien metaphors to help us realize that our three-dimensional perception of reality is just a projected shadow from the higher dimensional reality in which the visitors reside.
Hell yeah.
When our science understands that we live in a reduced dimensional view of a higher dimensional universe, many mysteries will resolve, from Bell's experiment to the unified field theory.
Wow.
We're like low res.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
like, you know, it's
exactly.
like, yeah.
We're in 8-bit world.
Yeah.
That's also the liner notes on the album Alien Boot Camp.
100%. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for being here. You'll be with us next week for part 2.
I'm excited.
In the meantime, where can people find your stuff? Do you have any shows coming up in LA that you want to plug? Do you have social media? What do you want to tell? Where can people find you, Matt?
You can find me on Instagram from time to time at Matt Cook Took Pics, and that's where I post a lot of the shows that I'm doing. I'm popping into Groundlings as much as I can. I'm doing a show at the Elysian Theater coming up the beginning of April.
Great.
Cool. Great theater.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah. They've been doing such fun stuff. Yeah, that's I'm like just hanging out.
If you're visiting LA on spring break, and you're a fan of Matt Cook and Kevin Kirkpatrick, they just did a show at the Groundlings last night.
Yes.
So go to the Groundlings website, check some stuff out. You might catch them Thursday nights at the Cooking with Gas show.
Yes.
Or are you doing any sketch shows right now there?
No, I'm not in the current show, but I'm probably going to do maybe the next one or the one after that. But they'll be coming up for sure. But yeah, if you come by the Groundlings and I'm there, please say hi.
Oh man,
it would be fun to meet some Club Scouts.
I love it. Okay, Club Scouts, don't forget to like and subscribe to BCC on YouTube. Join us over on the other side, patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub for bonus and ad-free episodes of BCC each month, as well as music by the syncopated syncopator himself, Riley Bray. Check it out over there, and then meet us back here next Wednesday for an all-new episode of BCC. Huge thanks to Matt Cook one more time. Until next time, good night.
And you go on now and get yourself regressed. But under your own goddamn choice.
That's right. You can't make me get regressed. I don't want to.
Regressed. Fuck that.
Great.
Wow,
Awesome.
Michael, what a ride. This was great.
Oh, dude, it's only going to get... Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced and engineered by Riley Bray and executive produced by Riley Bray and Michael McMillan. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Follow Suneaters on Spotify. For 3 bonus episodes every month and ad-free episodes, check out BCC The Other Side at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub.